Hi, and welcome back. This is my How to Make a Stained Glass Tree series, tree number 8, flat glass and glass globs over a silicone-coated foam tree. Now, this is probably my favorite tree that I made. So first of all, I decided that I wanted to have like a garland around it. So I found an object that was the right diameter for the stones I wanted to use. I'm actually using flat glass globs. They're sometimes called dragon tears or flat marbles, but they're basically domed on one side and flat on the other side. And I think I'm putting this over a Vaseline container, but anything that you have that once you make the loop, you will end up having the right diameter copper wire to hold the little charm in, because I wanted to do the garland with a whole row of these. So I needed to foil my glass globs. So for glass globs, I take my 7/32 inch black backed foil and I cut the foil in half. Now I do this because I like using black back so that you won't have any undesirable color showing through your objects. And the reason I am only using half of it is I don't want the foil to take up too much of the circle when I'm done. So I want the glass glob to be really visible. So I just really want the foil just to stick around the outside. So as you see, I'm putting around the biggest diameter there is. So it kind of gets wider just a bit before it gets to the bottom. And I just wind them around. I overlap them, I don't know, like a half inch, quarter to a half inch. You want to overlap them a bit because they may decide to come off when you're working. And if you have them overlap, there's more of a chance that they won't pop off because you're not really like going around the outside like you would with normal stained glass. So it has to hold it down pretty sturdy with the stickiness of it. So that's why right now I'm burnishing it down. I have a plastic probe that I like to use, and I'm just kind of pressing it down on the edges. And I'm doing that to all of them. They take about a minute and a half or so to do each glass glob. So I usually like to do like a whole bunch and have like a big bowl of them. When I'm making projects, I then figure out what I want to use. So see, I have a whole like little container of them. I just plop a bunch out on my silicone covered tabletop. I put flux around them. I like to use gel flux because gel flux isn't really runny. And you notice they're a little bit different sizes, and your wire loops are going to be slightly different sizes. So you might have to mix and match and find the right hole for the right piece of glass, because some of the glasses will be rounder than others and some will be larger. There's not a complete consistency with life when you're doing things like this. So what I'm doing right now is I am filling each of the little loops that I made with a flat red glass glob. And I just really like these red globs because they're not painted on globs. So it's red all the way through. Even if you heat up the glass, it will not like suddenly the paint comes off of it like painted glass you might have noticed does that. And that is not what I ever want to use. I always want to use glass that is actually colored glass that's been made into something as opposed to painted. And yeah, it's kind of a mix and match to find ones. You can't just go by price because sometimes inexpensive ones are actually full glass and sometimes expensive ones are not. So you can't really go on just the money. But I will put these in the description so you can see which brand I use for this particular red glass globs. And I just think they're really, really pretty. And these are also pretty small globs. Most of the globs as a general thing are going to be about 3/4 of an inch. And this bunch is all half inch. So this whole tree is done with glass globs that are about a half inch diameter. So of course you can, use whatever size you want, but I wanted to have pretty small globs because the tree's not, overly big. It's only like finished, probably around 10 inches tall. But the tree itself area is probably more like 9 inches. So they're not like really big trees. So I didn't want to have, overpopulate this poor little tree with these glass decorations. I made a bunch of leaves. You can cut your leaves out of, any scrap green glass you have. You can cut them with a handheld glass cutter. That's an easy way to do it. Or you can cut them on your ring saw if you have a ring saw. So either way is fine. One thing I like using the ring saw to do this is that the ring saw will also make it so that you don't have to grind the edges or live with really sharp edges on your leaves. So that's one thing that's nice about using a ring saw to cut something. I think it might take a little longer on the ring saw, but they come off nice and like already kind of grinded on the edges so that they're not sharp at all. Now I have a variety of leaves. So what I am trying to do is I, I I'm making this over my silicone covered styrofoam tree form. And I'm using these leaves to help secure the garland in place. So before I add any additional glass globs to this project, I want to make sure that ring around the tree is actually going to stay in that position. Now, I did use some wires and pins to hold the garland in place, but it's just more sturdy if I have some leaves already soldered on holding the garland in place. So that's why I like having, a variety of sizes and colors of leaves, and I'm just soldering them higgly-piggly wherever they feel like going. Now I got these 1/2 inch glass globs, which are really nice. They're not quite as thick as the red ones, but I really like them because they're a nice bright colors and they're the right size, and I can just solder them here and there between the leaves wherever I can find a spot. So I'm going to like kind of tack them in place wherever they touch, and then I'm going to solder the edge to make it all the same silver solder color. So yep, that goes around there. So what I'm trying to do, of course, is find places that I can solder these these globs to. So they're going to have to be between two other objects at least. I mean, if I can get 3 different places where I can solder it on, great. But if not, 2 is probably fine. If I can hold it with the needle nose pliers or tweezers like I'm trying to do right now, then that's really great. But sometimes I can't really get it to hold correctly, and so I do have to just use my hand. And you may have noticed that I have silicone gloves on, so the heat will be dissipated somewhat, so I won't get burned, not really badly if I get a bunch of solder on me, or if I'm holding an object, the temperature won't be quite so hot, so I can hold it for a sec without being in pain. So as you see, I'm just like holding it because the heat's going to go right on that foil and go all the way to your finger like immediately. But wearing gloves, it does help it so that you don't get burned. So as you can see, I'm spinning my tree around as I go. I want the colors to be very varied. So like that's a light blue. So I don't want to put another light blue near it. So I'm going to try to find another color that's a little bit different. Okay, I guess I have a yellow one there, and I haven't had a yellow one in that area, so that will be a great place for that one. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going from one place to another, trying to put as many glass ornaments I'm calling them, I'm using them to as ornaments in this. And yeah, I'm going to add LEDs to this when I'm done, but we'll be able to see the different colors at times depending on the color LED um, that I have. Sometimes the glass globs, fit beautifully in a space, and there are times when I actually had to have one glass glob attached to another glass glob to make the connection that I want to do. I think I even added leaves as I went along. If I decided a place was too big and I had another leaf on my table, I would just, use that leaf. And as you notice, the leaves were kind of like going different directions all the time, and they also varied. So I probably had like 6 different types of leaves that I used because I like to have a big variety in a project like this. I think that's just fun to have them all different directions and colors and sizes. I like to have my leaves to be different sizes. I really think that was a plus. I ended up doing 2 different trees in this series that have glass leaves in them, and the other one will be coming up soon. So these are just normal sheet glass that you would normally use for stained glass work. And as you know, when you buy sheet glass, you can get it in all different variations of textures and different colors. They're pretty much always the same thickness. There's some variations sometimes to them, but they usually you can mix and match pretty easily. So like that one I put directly on the ground, attached only to that wire hoop that's at the bottom of this. But I'm going to now have another one right above it that's going to attach it to the garland, to the red garlands. So it's like a little chain of ornaments there. And I think I even added another one to this chain area. Yep, there's another one. So they all kind of helped hold each other in place. And yeah, as most of my solder, three-dimensional solder projects that I'm doing, the solder itself ends up being a little on the lumpy side, not that beautiful smooth stuff that you sometimes do for like a flat work. Now I'm scooping it off the tree, and there's my Christmas tree. That's it's off the silicone tree, and now I'm adding yet more um, decorations to it. Now, when I'm doing these, I obviously don't have anything to hold the back of it because I've taken it off my support. So I either need to hold it with my hands like I'm doing right now, or put some kind of fabric or paper towels or tweezers or something. I have to have something to hold it in place while I'm working. So that's why it's nice to keep it on the form, that tree form that I have in the background there, to keep it on that form as long as you can, because it's really a nice form. You can put thumbtacks in it or push pins or straight pins. There's lots of different types. You can use wires. You can just stab it with different things and it'll hold your project in place. Whereas right now, everything's like just floating in the air. So I have to either balance it or I have to figure out how I'm going to hold it. Now I'm also going inside my project once now and then and making sure that there's solder going on in the joints, especially joints that I have questions about that I don't think are as sturdy as I'd like. Then it's really imperative to do a back soldering job there. So toward the end, I'm just trying to figure out, okay, where can I put another one? So any place on this tree that I can fit an ornament, I am going to put one there. So that's basically my way of figuring out, how many to do. I'm going to put one wherever one fits. If the area is small, so small that I can't fit one of the half-inch round globs, then I guess I don't need an ornament there. So that kind of gave a good indication of where to put them. And as you can see, there's going to be open spaces all over this tree. This is not one of those trees that I am filling in every gap, because it just isn't happening. So you can see that sometimes it's just kind of tricky to hold it in place while you're trying to solder. The whole thing wants to scoot across the table. I can try to hold it there. Finally got one. You only need to, like, very minimally solder it on, and then you can make the other edges more sturdy after you've gotten one little tack, on these globs are pretty lightweight. So once you get one little area on, you can then just do a different area. Of course, don't go heat up the same area right away, because, the whole thing will just fall off, because it needs something that's somewhat cool, some seam that's somewhat cool, that will hold your glob. So as you can see, while I'm doing this, I'm being able to see if there's any other areas that I've missed, because I'm moving this whole tree in different angles and stuff as I'm working on it. So that lets me notice if there's any copper foil still showing. So I can just, like, touch that piece of copper foil up while I'm going along merrily putting more globs in. So this is one reason why I think that you should really have, if you're going to do a project like this, have a whole bunch of your globs ready to go, so you don't run out. So it's really nice if you don't run out of materials while you're working. So that's why I like to have a whole pile. I can figure out what one. I picked up a yellow one a minute ago, and I was like, no, I don't want that yellow one there, because I just put a yellow one in. So it was really nice that I had a bunch of other colors to choose from, and I wasn't just stuck with the one choice. I wanted to be able to have the whole array of colors and to choose from, so I could go, okay, well, this area needs this color, and I don't have to worry about where I'm going to put them. Sometimes I end up with a bunch of one color left, like I have a bunch of the purples for some reason, the kind of dusty roses purples. And so whenever I can use one of them, I'm trying to put one in, because, oops, one fell out, because I just have a bunch of them left, and I like to have, the same, a bunch of the same different colors when I'm done. You notice I used a paper towel behind it to help hold it. So, whatever works. Okay, I mean, paper towel is fine. Obviously, if you get it hot with the solder iron, it's going to catch on fire, and that would be a bad thing. But as long as you're just, like, using it as some way to hold your project in place, you'll be fine. I guess that area just kind of went off the side of my camera, but that red one I just soldered in, so that looked fine. Now, I haven't washed this project as I was working. I kind of just did the whole thing. So that's why it's all kind of shiny and slimy looking. So once it's washed, it'll really sparkle a lot more, and it won't be it won't look all wet and slimy like it does right now. So I guess I have another one. I'm seeing, will that one fit there? I don't know if it will. I guess I can balance it right there. As long as it's not sticking out too much. I don't want any of my globs to be, like, sticking out. I want them pretty much the same level as all the rest of them for this particular tree. I'm not after some of the balls being, like, on top of the other ones. I want them all to be pretty much the same plane. And yeah, I even use some clear globs in some of the areas. So as you notice, I have like maybe three different color blues. I have a yellow and an amber. I have a light purple. Um, and there's just so many different colors and even a green balls. So sometimes when you buy glass, you can get in a whole assortment instead of picking one color. So it really depends on how you buy them, whether you'll get an assortment or you'll get a certain color. And yeah, sometimes some projects I would really like to have an assortment like this one, but some other project like when I was doing the garland, I was really glad that I could just buy 50 or whatever it was, a big bunch of those red ones. Um, and I did have a couple of the trees that I made. I used the red small balls like that for the garlands because I just, it's very Christmassy and it's a nice size. So I guess I'm doing a blue one right there. He's sticking out a little bit, but he's not much. He's okay, and that space really needed one, so it went. Since I'm getting toward the top, I'm trying to figure out where the star is going to go and how the balls are going to relate to the star. So I have a whole bunch of beads. These are clear glass beads. So they're basically glass chandelier parts that have a hole in them. Some of them have a AB coating on them and some of them don't. And I will have a video on just making these stars that I made. This particular star, I just used wire and wired all of the beads together. I didn't foil any of them. So you'll see the copper foil in there, the copper wire. Now what I'm trying to do right now is put solder wherever there's a copper wire space between two glass um, two glass beads and hoping that with the solder it'll help keep them all sturdy. Now I ended up having to wrap these these parts with wire toward their bases to help hold them together because it just wasn't enough places that I could put solder in that would actually help hold them. Some of my other, see right now I'm putting a wire through one of the beads and then wrapping it around a neighboring bead to help hold them together. So some of my stars that I made, I actually wrapped the bottom, the base of the chandelier shaped um, crystals with foil. So that helped give me something to solder into. Without any solder at all on this star topper, it would just kind of flop and it wouldn't stay, in the star shape that I want. They wouldn't be, somewhat varied little points of the star. So that's the problem with not being able to put solder in them or not being able to wrap them, something like that. They just kind of will go on their own. So right now I am using a thinner wire and wrapping around different um, pieces. Now, I don't know what kind of wire this is. I just found a spool of thinner wire that I happen to have, but I did test it with the solder iron to make sure that it would accept solder. So, you don't have to use copper wire. If you can find wire that will allow you to solder to, then yeah, go for it. Use that wire. You don't have to use copper or brass. There are other alloys that you can use. And if you're like me and you find one in the house, a spool of wire isn't necessarily labeled. Um, it might just be a spool of wire that was just in a drawer, and you're like, oh, look at this spool of wire. It looks like about the right thickness for some fun things. I wonder if I can use it in my stained glass work. And then you'd have to like test it. You don't want to use it and then find out, no, it's like repelling solder. Um, so, it's whatever you want. But as you can see, that's kind of nice that this worked. It's probably around a 20 gauge wire. And I can just wrap it, wrap it, wrap it around the different chandelier parts and kind of hold it together. And that really helped because then after I did some wrapping around the bases of these and pulling them and straightening them out and then adding solder to wherever the wires meet, it really helped all the little points of the chandelier to of the star together. What I wanted, this star is hollow in the middle, so I'm going to put some lights inside the top of this star. So that's why I'm making this star, and why I think you can see some shots of what the inside looks like. So it's actually there's like a little hollow area in the middle of this. So I'm going to be able to add lights to it, which is, my thought is if I add lights to the middle, it'll kind of shine and shimmer like a star. So that's why it's the shape the way it is. And if an area is too wimpy, even with solder, you can come back with your needle nose like I just did and just kind of crimp the wire where you wrapped around the crystal, and that'll make it even tighter. So it's you know, kind of a come and go with this. Wherever I can find wires, I am soldering them. And if the chandelier point is still on the wimpy side and moving too much, I will give it a nice crimp to hold it together. So you can see that there's like a little X where they wrapped around right there. Just keep turning it and filling it with solder. These projects do take a lot of solder. I'm not fooling you. This really ridiculous amount of solder the way I'm doing these projects. Almost a whole pound of solder in each tree at times. So you can see that the bottom of this is in fact hollow. Now I left the wires on it in places so that I could use those actual wires to help hold the tree together. So as you can see, I'm like wrapping the wires themselves around areas of the tree, and that's how I'm going to attach it. So I have a wire there and I'm using my needle nose and trying to pull that wire out, and then just pull it tight and step back a little bit, look at the tree, make sure that it looks like it's straight, and then I'm bending the wires so the wires kind of follow the contour of one of the glass globs or one of the leaves, so that when I solder them in, they're not going to look like foreign leaves, wires just kind of sitting there. They're going to actually be part of the design. And you can like start by soldering one little bit and then bend it some more. You don't have to do all the bending right off the bat. So I'm soldering an area now, and then I can either cut the wire or I can bend it yet again. It's really whatever you want to do. I decided on this one to cut it right there and then just kind of bend it back around underneath that leaf and be done with it that way. And then I'm just adding solder to cover it up so you don't really see the wire as much. And it's really strong. And this one I decided to go along the side of a leaf by wrapping around one as you can see. So I just kind of like crimped it until it was tight, and then went along the side of the solder joint that was already there. That one I'm going along the edge of a leaf itself, and I'm not really wrapping around a leaf. So it's whatever it takes to hold it together. I've even at times added yet another wire to the star, um, and just kind of solder one up to an area of the star that's already has solder on it, and then bring the wire down from there to attach to the rest of it. Thank you for watching. You can see the lights on the inside of this of the star at the top. It's very pretty. I really like this tree. It goes with all the other ones that I made. And please subscribe so you don't miss any of my other upcoming trees. And you can watch all my previous videos if you'd like to, because there's a bunch of them now. And thank you. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.